So it's 7:15. Let's start. Okay na. Hello everyone. Thank you for coming and kumusta kayo? I know it sounds cliche, but I hope you are all doing well today, despite what is happening in the world. My name is B.A. Racoma and welcome to Prospectus. Our group is either hashtag or at SciencePH on Twitter, and we aim to facilitate conversations between Filipino scientists around the world. With that in mind, we host webinars that talk about different topics that might be of interest to our young Filipino scientists and science enthusiasts. So today's topic is a very timely one given the intake schedule for different programs, grad school applications, and experiences. For this session, we'll be specifically talking about applying for master's degrees. While every person's story is different, we hope that our guests today can share some stories that will help us as some of us consider taking advanced degrees. The word prospectus is a word used for a formal document that provides detailed information about the thing it describes. As graduate school application season starts, we wanted to provide our fellow Pinoy scientists a resource for available scholarships and opportunities for postgraduate applications, both in the Philippines and abroad. It is not impossible to try pursuing further education in some of the world's leading institutions without worrying too much about the burden of self financing your postgraduate education. Also, if you can, please stay after the webinar. We will be hosting a short listening session regarding further experiences that may affect graduate students, both masters and PhDs in the Philippines. A recent conversation between students has revealed that master's students are now required to publish at least one paper in a reputable journal before being allowed to graduate. We believe that this should be talked about, especially as it could be an additional burden on our master's students. Pag-usapan natin siya mamaya. So without further ado, I give the mic or floor to our moderator, one of the co-founders of Science Chat PH, May.
Hi everyone! I hope you're doing well today. Magandang gabi sa mga nasa Pilipinas, magandang umaga sa mga nasa ibang time zone, magandang hapon. Ako si May Antoinette Mercado, isa sa mga co-founders ng Science Chat PH. At andito ako ngayon para i-moderate ang ating seminar or webinar. So today we are joined by distinguished Filipino scientists to share with us their personal experiences and narratives about their graduate school application and scholarship applications as well. And since we are in a time of COVID-19, na I believe walang nakaranas sa mga nandito ngayon previously, it would be also interesting to hear if they have what their experiences are at this present time. So before we officially start the webinar, here are some reminders for our attendees. So the session will run for about 2 hours. We are requesting everyone to turn off your camera and mute your microphone to lessen the bandwidth of the platform and eliminate unnecessary background noises. So except the speakers. We will be having 2 batches of speakers for today's webinar, and each speaker will have 7 minutes for their talk. A panel type Q&A will follow after all the speakers from each batch finished their presentations. Listeners can ask questions during the presentation using the Zoom chat box or YouTube live comments. So live din tayo sa YouTube, guys. If your friends weren't able to register, you can send them the live link, which is currently posted on our Twitter, I think. So the moderator will randomly pick questions from the chat box, which will be asked to the speaker. But if there are too many questions in the interest of time, please understand that not all will be recognized. However, if the speakers wish to answer some of the questions, they can also use the chat box to interact with our audience. So next, the session will be recorded and shared online. We are also streaming the webinar on our YouTube channel at Science Chat PH. So if you want, you can like and subscribe and follow us as well there. And with the approval of the speakers, presentation materials may also be shared online. At the end of the session, we will be having an evaluation form, and we would like to ask your help for us to be able to improve our next webinars and Hangout sessions. And in return, we will send you an e-certificate for attending this session. Also, please do not forget to follow us on Twitter at ScienceChatPH and use the hashtags ScienceChatPH, Prospectus, and Get Into Masters if you want to share anything related to this webinar session. Lastly, let's not forget to enjoy and have fun. So this is a good way to learn and at the same time, spend time with people, although virtually nga lang at the moment. So with that, ready na ba tayong lahat mga ka-Science Chat PH? Should we begin? Okay. So now I'll be introducing the first batch of our speakers. So our speakers are from different parts of the world, Pinoy scientists who were able to pursue graduate education, not just in the Philippines, but also in different parts of the world. And all of them got into scholarships that could help struggling Filipino scientists like us get good quality education at the same time without worrying about the financial burdens of financing graduate schooling. So the speakers are grouped based on the region where they got their degrees and scholarships. So kung nanonood kayo ng Miss Universe lang ang peg natin today since hindi pa nangyayari ulit ang Miss Universe. So we have grouped them into two, the Europe and the Americas, and Asia and Oceania. So for the Europe and the Americas, we'll be starting off with Pearl. So Pearl was a recipient of the PhilFrance scholarship. She has a BSc in nursing and took her international master in public health in France. She is also currently a PhD student in health and safety PhD student in health and safety at National Conservatory of Arts and Crafts, Hesam University, where she works on drivers of inequalities in HIV testing uptake in sub-Saharan Africa. Next speaker is Geisha Sanchez, who is currently a PhD student in sustainability management at the University of Waterloo. She also took her Master of Science in Sustainable Development at the University of Sussex and was a recipient of Chevening Scholarship Award. She worked during her master's on sustainability transitions in food systems. And our next speaker is Brian J. De Lima Ambolo, who took his international masters in dance knowledge, practice, and heritage with the Erasmus Mundus Scholarship. Brian continuously navigates the junction of governance, culture, and creativity, as well as innovation for social impact. The last speaker for our first batch of presenters is Joey Hernandez, who is currently a Secretary General at the Philippine Society of Public Health Physicians. He is taking Master of Public Health in Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health in the United States under the Fulbright Scholarship. He is an early career public health practitioner who is very keen on backing up his public health experience with solid theoretical foundations, along with expanding his professional network. So those are our speakers for our first part of the webinar. We have Pearl, Geisha, Brian, and Joey. And then now we can take our notebooks out, as well as our pens, and start listening to their personal narratives about their scholarships and graduate school application. Maybe learn some tips and tricks to be one step closer to that dream postgraduate education. So Pearl, I'll stop sharing my screen, and Pearl, you can start sharing your slides.
Yes. Thank you, May. Can you see my screen? It's fine?
Yep, it's working.
Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for having me here, and I'm happy to talk about how to study in France and my personal experiences. So again, my name is Pearl. So to start off, let me share with you a few things about myself. So before studying in France, I worked as a nurse for almost 4 years in Makati City. And in 2016, I am grateful to be one of the PhilFrance scholars of the French Embassy. And through this scholarship, I met inspiring and motivated fellow Filipinos. So during this scholarship program, I took Master of Public Health at the EHESP French School of Public Health and graduated last 2018. Currently, I'm a PhD student in Health and Safety at the Conservatoire National des Arts et Métiers. And currently, I'm in my second year. So as I mentioned before, during my scholarship program, I took MPH at the EHESP. This master is a 2-year master program, completely delivered in English. And it's also part of the Erasmus Mundus European Public Health. And during your second year, you get the chance to choose your discipline or your track that you want to specialize in, such as epidemiology and biostatistics. To give you a background about EHESP, it's a grande école. It's a term they use in France to mean an elite school that has highly competitive admission requirements. And this school is specifically designed to form the next generation of public health professionals. So the main campus is located in Rennes, which is at the west side of France, near the ocean. And my program, the MPH, is located in north of Paris. I won't go into much into details regarding the admission requirements for the university itself. But if you're interested in applying, I highly recommend for you guys to check out their website and subscribe to get updates regarding when the application session opens. And it usually starts around December. So it's important to take note that the university and scholarship applications are separate. For the PhilFrance scholarship announcements, you will see these announcements on the Campus France website and their social media accounts. So Campus France is a body that gives free consultations and guidance to prospective students who want to pursue education in France. And you will also see these announcements on the French Embassy Facebook page and their main website. But if you want to go right into it and get to know more about the information and details of the scholarship, you can check out their main website at philfrance-scholarships.com. And on that website, you will see the PhilFrance scholarship requirements and calendar. So the idea here is once you apply for the scholarship, the idea is you have already applied to your program. And the application session usually starts around January up until March. On their website, you will also see if you are eligible to apply or if the program you're interested in is eligible for applying. They've also detailed the benefits of the scholarship. And for your information, once you get in France, the French government also financially help students, be it a scholar or not, especially regarding accommodation. To help you prepare for your university and scholarship applications, here are some useful tips that I think are helpful. So regarding the general requirements, it's important to take note of the deadlines and start early, because some of the requirements are you need time and preparation, like IELTS. Connect with past scholars to get advices and suggestions. And of course, don't be scared to ask. If you have doubts, you can always email the scholarship body or scholars as well. Regarding your essays and letters, I suggest for you to avoid repeating information already found on your curriculum vitae. And the French are really really particular with this. And please follow instructions and word limit. And regarding my scholarship and university applications, I didn't really have any interviews, but I've had experiences in internship applications. So I highly recommend for you to practice and avoid memorizing answers, because once you memorize, you will forget the rest of the sentences if you forget one word. So while waiting for results, I suggest for you to try as much as possible not to stress over your submitted application and to focus your attention onto the next application. And if you do get in the scholarship and your program, please expect a lot of paperwork. You need a lot of patience with the French bureaucracy. It's a notorious thing here. So, and of course, you need to learn basic French to survive or thrive in the French community. And you need to also get acclimated and adapt to the French culture. And they expect you to kind of do that and not the other way around. So I suggest for you to check out some YouTube videos to get acclimated with the French culture. And if you don't get the scholarship and get rejected, I know it's hard, but we have to be proactive rather than reactive. So take this chance to ask for the reason for your rejection, if it's applicable, and it may help you in your next applications. And of course, spend time with your family and friends for support. So during this time of pandemic, these are some just helpful tips for us to thrive and do our best. So as much as possible, maintain the routine you had before the pandemic to keep motivated. Regularly communicate with your support system and colleagues at work. Take care of yourself. And if you're not as productive as before, do not be too hard on yourself. It's not your fault, and no one is expecting a lot from us nowadays because of the pandemic. Everyone needs a space. And of course, pandemic or not, make sure to have at least 15 minutes self-time each day for yourself and do something you love. And I will leave you with this quote from Nelson Mandela, which is, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Merci.
Very much, Pearl, for your presentation. I hope our viewers learned a lot from it. And now can I ask Geisha to share her screen?
Hi, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, May, for that wonderful introduction. Hello, everybody. My name is Geisha, and here is my story. So I went to my undergrad with a DOST scholarship where I studied BS Biology and later on worked in the International Rice Research Institute. And then I went to University of Sussex in UK under the Chevening Scholarship. And now I'm doing PhD in Sustainability Management in Canada under a Global Research Scholarship. But enough about myself. The takeaway here is that, yes, I didn't pay anything for any post-secondary education, and that I'm no stranger to scholarships applications. So now I'm just excited to share a bit of my knowledge and experience with you guys, especially with Chevening scholarships for masters in the UK. But since we have limited time, all I can advise for you now is to just start. And that's everything. Thank you for listening. Just kidding. Of course, you have this question in mind, but how to start? So what I meant by start is set expectations, take note of timelines, archive documents, review and revise, and take your shot. First, for setting expectations, if you're familiar with the Chevening already, you'll see this list of requirements for eligibility, and you might have some thoughts that will hinder you from applying. But what you should know is that you should expect that they don't expect all applicants to be valedictorians. Of course, academics are important, but with Chevening, it's not the top priority. They other criteria are more important. So yeah, this is an expecting lady. So what to expect? So another thing is that scholarships don't happen overnight. So even if you're not ready now, just start preparing, because for me, before I got my scholarship, it took me like 2 years of trying. So just start now. And then you might also think that Chevening expects you to show them that you can change the world. But really, scholarships prefer realistic and specific visions. And scholarships only want to know how you think and if you have the qualities they are looking for. And for Chevening, it's basically they're looking if how do you stand out? Are you proactive? Are you a problem solver? And are you innovative? So after setting your mind in the right place, the next thing you do is look into the timelines. So you should really take note of timelines, and you can have this information in the official Chevening website. By the way, I've had some links embedded in these slides, which you can review on later. So when you go to the Chevening webpage, you can see this process, and it's a lengthy process. As you can see, it range 1 year from when the applications open this September 3rd to where you begin your studies in the UK next September to October. But really, all you have to really take note of the dates are these highlighted in red, which I highlighted for you, because those are what you need to be preparing for. So my tip here would be to set an alarm reminder for 2 weeks before the deadline so that you'll have enough time to finalize your requirements. And then 2 days before the deadline, that's when you have to submit them. Don't wait for the last minute, because as you can see, time zones here are quite different and quite bit tricky. And usually for the last minutes, there are like systems breakdown, there are really, it's stressful. So just submit them 2 days before. And also, this process is not just what it is. Aside from this, you have to plan for other things which you can't really see. There you go. So I've listed it for you. So my tip would be to canvass programs and universities before applications open, because for preparing for your applications, there are essays, and in the essays, it would really help if you know the program and the university you would want to apply in the UK. So start canvassing now, start looking for programs you might be interested in, take note of the key courses, and then embed it in your application. And I'll leave this other list for you to take note later because we have limited time. So I'll just move on to the next step. But I'm showing this to you not to overwhelm you, but to remind you that failing to plan is planning to fail. So planning for your approach in scholarship application is really important. So the next step would be archiving documents and drafts. So these are the usual lists for of required documents for scholarship applications. And for Chevening, you're required to write 4 essays: leadership and influence essays, networking skills, career plan, and studying in the UK. So I've listed here a set of tips, which I will leave to you to review later. Okay. So yeah, I guess the top tip here would be for your essay writing, keep it concise and specific. They really are looking for specific plans because keep in mind that this scholarship assessors, like the readers, will read thousands of essays, and you have to stand out, but you have to stand out quickly in a quick manner, like something that they will still remember even after reading a bunch of essays. So the key here is to write your essays maybe in this strategy: context, action, or result, or situation, task, action, result. So keep it specific and concise. So the next step would be reviewing and revising. After you've prepared your documents, your essays, review and revise. So one would be yourself, then other people, and then yourself again. Finalize and then ask these questions to yourself. So the takeaway here is to keep an organized database of your application documents, because in the future you can reuse this and just tweak this for the next try. So it will be an easier time for you. Because for me, I didn't get Chevening for my first try, but I have already archived the documents that I've used for my application. And so the second time it was easier for me because I just have to tweak a little more things. And then what happens next? After taking your shot, what do? So while waiting for your results, you can research more about your prospective universities, programs, and places, because in Chevening, you have to list 3 universities and programs of your choice. But if you get shortlisted in the interview, they will give you the option to change your program and university of choice. So it would be better if you already have an idea of what you really want, like what's your top priority, where do you want to live, which program you want to take. So while waiting, research more about it, and these are some resources that where you can go to. And also, it is also important to check out other opportunities, because time is gold, right? So what I do is I subscribe to email lists. Scholarship Positions is a good email program. So they just send you the other the scholarship opportunities that might be available for you. And also participates in events that align to your vision. So enrich your knowledge further. It never goes bad doing that thing. And then what do I expect and what do I do next if I get in? So there's a lot of other things you have to prepare for. You have to prepare for the culture, the weather, the language. And yeah, it's the fastest pace, because a master's in the UK is just 1 year. So it's the fastest paced, most intellectually stimulating, and most socially jam-packed 1 year of your life. So it's going to be exciting. But what to do if your application is unsuccessful? Well, just start again. But first, take time to reflect and redirect. Maybe you need time to rethink about your approach, like what in my career plans went wrong, and then read again your essays. And then when you participate to other events, workshops, your knowledge will grow, and then you can improve your applications for the next time. And tips on pursuing a postgraduate degree in the middle of global pandemic. It's just simple: prioritize personal sustainability. Our main goal now is to keep our balance, peace of mind, health, and security. And also listen to this song. This is a really great song if you're having some anxiety or some feeling that I should be doing something now, but really just take it easy. And that's all. Even if for slow steps, just start and you'll eventually get there. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Geisha. So to everyone, you can put your questions in the chat box. But for now, we'll proceed with the presentation of Brian. Let me just share his slides for you guys. Okay, Brian, are you?
I'm good. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Brian.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Bom dia from Portugal. My name is Brian, and I am an Erasmus alumnus. So I did my master's in dance and anthropology in 2014 in 4 universities in Europe. So that's in Norway, France, Hungary, and the UK. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank Jules and the Science Chat PH team for asking me to impart everyone some of my personal tips and tricks on making the most out of your Erasmus Plus journey. So next slide, please. So it's just a very quick outline of this presentation. So it's gonna show you quick overview of Erasmus Plus, and then choosing a program, preparing your application, recommendation letters, motivation letter, waiting for the results, and then doing a postgraduate degree for during the pandemic, and then some additional tips. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Erasmus is actually an acronym, meaning European Community Action Scheme for the Mobility of University Students. And it also happened to be connected to Erasmus of Rotterdam, one of the greatest Renaissance scholars. And it is a mobility, it's an academic mobility scheme funded by the European Union. And at the heart of Erasmus really is the intercultural dialogue and understanding. It's great because you get to study in between 2 and 4 universities, or 5 even, in different countries in Europe. So there's no more program that could be that international. You get to live with other classmates from around 200 nationalities and different cities in Europe. So that is truly an international program. And also the alumnus, or what Erasmus produces, our scholars, really play a key role in different industries, in different organizations around the world. Next slide. Also, Erasmus is one of the most prestigious international academic mobility program. As I said earlier, you get to study between 2 and 4 universities through an international consortium of higher education institutions. It's also one of the toughest. Probably with one program, you can have around 800 applications, and around that, probably 40 will be accepted. But within that 40 participants, only a handful could get the scholarship. For this intake, 2020 to 2022, only 66 Filipinos got accepted. And actually, Philippines always performs well when it comes to in relation to other countries around the world when it comes to Erasmus scholars. It is also one of the most generous. I've seen a lot of questions asking if they need to apply to a university first or to the scholarship. What's good about Erasmus Mundus is you just need to apply to the program. So it's like different programs, and then apply to the program. And then if you get in, then you can get the scholarship. So you don't need to get the placement at the university and then apply for the scholarship. This one is just aligned and streamlined, so it's good. It's also one of the most generous. So participation costs, tuition fees, full insurance are all covered. The master's degree in Europe is 2 years. So you get an allowance of 1,000 euros for the whole 24 months. So that's 24,000 euros. And then on top of that, you get a 1,000 euro one-time installation cost and 3,000 euros per year. So it's 2 years, so 6,000 euros for travel costs. Next slide, please. And also one of the most diverse and highly specialized. I mean, it does from like fundamental to the highly specialized ones, from law, economics, culture, gender studies, sustainability, advanced robotics, big data, infectious diseases, very important nowadays, film, animation, wine tourism, puppetry, and even nanotechnology. Next slide. So if you scan this QR code, it leads you to the official catalog of the Erasmus courses. So we have currently 130 programs that you can choose from. And in every intake, in every application, you can choose to a maximum of 3. Personally, for me, because I'm not really good when it comes to archiving or creating my application. So I just focus on one and really put all my effort into it. Okay, and so you can search on the program. That's a course catalog. So if you really want to be part of that intake next year, 2021, you have to start now, because most of the programs open their application around September, October, and it ends December, January, Feb, and then the results are out by around April and May. So it really depends on the program. So you really need to just read on different programs depending on the requirements and their instructions. Next slide. So how to prepare your application, like what others said, you just need to look at the timeline, because more so if you're just a fresh grad, everything could be hard because of requiring your TOEFL exam or your IELTS exam. Your transcript of records could take a long time, probably between 3 or 4 weeks, because of what's happening now with the pandemic as well. Then it could take more, I guess. So just take a note of that, and then just do your research. For Erasmus Mundus applications, you can reach out to the European EU delegation in the Philippines. So those are some of the links. But I will be sharing this presentation to you guys as well. And then or the group of Filipino Erasmus alumni in the Philippines, they're also very active. So you can also reach out to them. Also, I think this is my most important tip to everyone. Don't feel like just because you did not perform well, I don't even know what performing well means, but if you didn't do academically before, you don't have to feel that you cannot be part of the Erasmus Mundus journey. I really feel that Erasmus Mundus is less about intelligence and really more about diligence. It's really more of what can I do? Like, what can I do in the future? How can I align myself with this program? So you must really put a heavy focus on your recommendation and motivation letters. I think I have friends who would ask me to revise or just read their motivation letters. And I think out of 5 or 6 people who asked me, when I told them that motivation letter is really the key, and then when we revised, I think around 4 of them got into the program. So really put a lot of effort in your motivation letter, in your statement of purpose. Next slide. So yeah, for the recommendation letter, they just want to see how they just want you to exercise how other people view you, I guess. So as much as possible, just find the right person who can really describe you, your characteristics, and your traits and skills. For me, they were asking actually before, because it was a master's in dance and anthropology, so I needed to do an audition tape as well, an audition reel. But during that time, I asked someone, they were asking for 2 recommendation letters, but I kind of became pabibo and gave 4 recommendation letters. But I asked for like a professor of anthropology, just how he views me as a student. And then someone from the NCCA, how he views me when I was engaged in like the cultural and creative industries. And then a colleague who's a French director, so how she views me as a colleague. So just be mindful of those recommendation letters. Next slide. For the motivation letter, I wouldn't like say everything else, but it really boils down to reflection. You really have to know yourself. Because like what Geisha said, they will be reading like 800 to 1,000 applications. So your motivation letter must really stand out. Like first 2 sentences of your motivation letter, it must catch their attention already. I know that this is not a very good it's not a very good metaphor, but think yourself as a brand. Think yourself of a product. How will you sell yourself? What is your unique selling proposition? Why would I buy you? What distinguishes yourself from the others? And what sets you apart? So also, what's good about the Erasmus Mundus program, it doesn't have any bond. So after graduating, you can find a job in EU, or back to the Philippines, but they don't really ask you for a plan of action after that. But I suggest that in your motivation letter, you still put like what's going to happen in the future. What is your goal in the future? Why do you need this program? It's nice to have just a general course of action in the end, or a plan of action of what will you do when you earned your master's degree from Erasmus Mundus. Next step. Next step. Like step 5. Next slide. Oh yeah. So just do not echo your CV. Just keep it short and simple, and don't use complex language. Next slide, please. So if you send your application, just ask them for an acknowledgement if they receive the application. Wait for it and celebrate. Don't think too much about it, like what the previous speaker said. Just continue what you're doing. Just celebrate, because it was a tough process. Like it could take months in the making. So just celebrate those little victories. If you got accepted, congratulations. You're gonna go enter another series of bureaucracy. So the coordinator will just get back to you on your confirmation, visa processes, everything. If you got waitlisted, your acceptance will be dependent on how you rank into the waiting list. So there will be a waiting list, and then the number of accepted applicants turning down the offer. So it could be a bit hard. So don't really expect too much if you saw that you got waitlisted. So don't really hope. Don't keep your hopes up. So if you didn't get in, like what Pearl said, ask for a feedback. Thank them for the opportunity and ask them for critiques. I know Filipinos could be a bit shy, or they don't really accept critiques, but really the key is feedback. You need to tell them what's wrong with your application so you can move forward, and you can really fine tune your application. For if you really want to be part of Erasmus Mundus, then just continue applying next year, or there's a lot of programs that could offer you a better chance. Next slide. So yeah, tips on pursuing a postgraduate degree. Of course, you'll be alone. For me, I'm doing a PhD now. So apart from the workload, I am alone, and I'm away from home and family and friends. So it could take a toll on your mental well-being. Also virtualization. So for the past semester, everything was just online through Zoom. So it really blurs the boundary between work from home and live from work as well. So it could really take a toll on you. So yeah, but then opportunities, you can write articles and you can reflect more on yourself or look for other projects. So should I pursue a postgraduate degree? I think more than ever, it's a very, very interesting time we have in the moment. So it's not really pandemic or not, but really, what's your motivation? What's your why? Why would you want to pursue this program? Or why would you want to study abroad? Of course, everyone wants to travel to Europe. Everyone wants to travel around. But other than that, there are far more deeper ways, motivation other than traveling abroad. So yeah, next slide, please. And then here, just make sure to clean your digital footprint, because the panel could also be looking at your digital image, like what you post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So just be careful of that. Just scan the QR code for more tips and information. And once you get in, I assure you, it's like one of the most amazing journey of your life. So if you want to know more about it, just scan the code, or you can just email me or message me on my LinkedIn, and I will really happily help you and even take a look at your motivation letter. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian, for your presentation. And I hope that you guys learned from his slides so far and presentation so far. So next we have Joey Hernandez. And I just want to remind the speakers as well that Aiko is the one timing the presentation. So she'll send the message about the time. How do I share the screen? Sorry, I got lost in my own laptop. Okay, so Joey, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you can take it away.
So thank you. So good evening or good morning to all, depending on where you are in the world. No. So I'm Joey Hernandez. I'm currently a Master of Public Health student at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. So I just actually started last month. And I also applied to other scholarships, no, such as Chevening, Erasmus, and Australia Awards, but I found my home in Fulbright. So next slide, please. Next slide, po. So if any one of you is planning to study in these universities or in other institutions in the US, then you would want to consider applying for Fulbright. So just a brief background, no, on my educational and professional work. I did undergraduate biology in Ateneo, medicine in UP, and then my first master's with DAP. And then I was a doctor to the barrio for 2 years before working in public health consultancy. So I did not put a slide on that. So next slide, please. So I'm here to talk about the Fulbright program and tips on how to win it. Sige, next slide po. Okay, so Fulbright Philippines, back po. So Fulbright Philippines is managed by PAEF, or the Philippine American Educational Foundation. So they are the Fulbright Commission in the Philippines. So they administer the Fulbright grants since 1948, making Fulbright Philippines the longest running Fulbright program in the world. And funding comes from Philippine and US governments. My contributions actually from the private sector as well, and several government agencies. And they host both Philippine and US programs. So there are Fulbright programs for Filipinos and for US citizens under Fulbright Philippines. Next slide, please. So there are 6 Fulbright Philippines scholarship programs up for grabs. For us Filipinos, I'm going to center on number 1, which is my program, Fulbright Classic, or the Foreign Student Program. Next slide, please. So, what are the details on the Foreign Student Program? So this program is for Filipinos who want to pursue a degree like a master's or a doctoral degree, PhD, or a non-doctoral dissertation research. So you can study anything under the sun, most especially study of the US and of global issues, except medicine, nursing, PTOT, clinical psych, medtech, and accountancy. So pwede public health, public policy, data science, law. These are the usual fields in Fulbright. And what's included? So usual travel, allowances, tuition and fees, and health insurance. Next slide, please. So how do you apply for a Fulbright scholarship? So generally, there are 4 application steps. And I think compared to the others, the whole Fulbright application and placement process needs time and patience. It took us more than a year since this is quite different. So you have to apply for the grant first before you apply to the universities. So this is the application for the Fulbright scholarship, the grant. So first, you must meet the general eligibility requirements, then submit an application portfolio, then interview, and then the selection as either a principal or an alternate candidate. So details po, click natin. Click, yeah. Okay, so just to zoom in on the requirements, so dito sa first, you must meet the general eligibility requirements. You must be Filipino, you must be proficient in English, and your specialization, which you will elect in your application, you should have some experience on that. 2 years is required, and then you must be committed to go back to the Philippines upon completion of your degree, 2 years. And then for doctoral non-degree dissertation research, you must prove that there are no materials available here in the Philippines and it's available in the US. So applications usually open mid to late December. So for this year and December of 2020. And then you submit your application portfolio, which consists of an online application form. Nung sa amin, it was paper-based still, but now medyo high-tech na. And then TOR from all universities attended, 4 letters of recommendation. Sa iba, 2 lang or 3, but for Fulbright, you need 4. You also need NBI clearance released in the past 6 months. And you have 3 months to complete your application. So deadline is usually March of the following year. So March 2021 na yung for the next. And then if you get shortlisted, you will be contacted for an interview. My interview back then happened in May. And then I was just informed, I think, a week prior. So kailangan mabilisan yung paghahanda. And then if you get selected, you will either be a principal or an alternate candidate. So approximating Chevening, because I've also undergone Chevening application, I was a reserve candidate back then. So parang ganon. For Chevening, conditionally selected is principal sa Fulbright, then alternate is reserve. And no time namin, we were invited to a gathering by the executive director, parang hindi pa namin alam status, and then you are invited to an event. Doon i-disclose in person with the letter of acceptance. And that marks the first day of the next stage of the process, no? Which is university admissions, which I will elaborate in the next slide. Ano pala, later on. So next slide. So ano muna tayo? Tips for every step of the way. Sige po, next slide. So application tips for writing essays. Actually, starting essays is the hardest. So first, start with an outline with clear intention in every paragraph. Best if you have a thesis statement on what you would actually want to discuss in your essays. And usually, these have a page limit. For Fulbright, 1 to 2 pages. I think more questions have 1 page limit than yung may mga 2-page limit. Be concise and direct and be mindful of your grammar. So use active voice. Be also cautious not to over or undersell yourself. So you must balance it. And also make sure you clearly and strongly indicate that your studies are needed on a societal level. And then what you will study and what you will bring to the Philippines will have impact in social relevance. Next slide, please. So for letters of recommendation, I think you should choose your recommenders wisely. Not just a friend or someone you have known just for less than 6 months. He or she should vouch for you, your skills and your talents professionally. Mainly siguro whom you have worked in engagements, projects, or jobs at least 6 months and can potentially give you higher marks. Especially since their Fulbright application recommendation letters will be also sent to the US universities. And also, I hope you give them enough time to write you recommendation letters. Don't just ambush them na parang 2 weeks before, 1 week before. So sana you give them a month or 2 for them to be able to think about it. And also, say thank you afterwards and update them with the outcome. Kahit hindi successful, you still update them if you want. Next slide, please. For the interview, I think this is the most nerve-wracking of all across all scholarship applications. I guess you can forecast questions and be prepared with some ready responses. Not really verbatim, no, but siguro if you get asked, may parang outline ka na or talking points, especially for those people na very nervous like me. So, review application documents and essays. Balikan nyo kung ano yung sinulat nyo doon kasi most likely these are the things which will be asked in your interview. However, there are also questions na anything under the sun. Nung sa akin parang may questions on how will you survive winters in the US? So, that took me by surprise, no? So, dapat snappy din yung pag-iisip natin. So, be in the moment, be present, show up early, at least 30 minutes before schedule, forecast the traffic, dress appropriately, and also you must frame your mind that this is not an interview where you will be judged, no? Kasi it will make you more anxious. I think the mindset should be, this is a getting to know you question. Are we fit together? Is Fulbright fit for me? Am I fit for Fulbright? It will help you relax and make your responses more genuine or more sincere. And speak slowly with moderate amount of confidence and maintain eye contact, but not too creepy eye contact. Smile and engage the interviewers. Next slide, please. For waiting for results, application is over. This is now out of your control. So, ang mantra ng isang kulig ko, apply and forget. This applies to all other things in life, no? And give yourself a pat on the back. Kung napagod ka, pat on the back with salon pass. Continue doing other things, work, studies, hobbies. The world should never stop. And always hope, but don't expect for anything. I think expectations causes frustrations. Next slide, please. So other tips, no? Na-mention na rin to previously. Yan. Please feel free to reach out to previous scholars for guidance. They've been in your position, they've been jittery as well, they've been dreaming of this before, and then they would be glad to help you. And rejections and disappointments make us stronger. It doesn't mean you're not good enough, it just means that it isn't for you. Sabi yan ng good friend ko, next speaker na si Jason Alacapa. It's not meant kung para sa'yo, para sa'yo. And then try again, send your applications to the world until you get it. It took me 2 Chevening applications, 1 Erasmus application, 1 Australia Awards application, then a Fulbright application. Yun yung last kong in-applyan, and then I found my home here. And then believe in yourself. Next slide, please. So this is quite different, no? Kasi sa Fulbright, hindi nagtatapos yun sa 3 months. You will have 1 year of grueling admission process. So ang nangyari last year, nung nag-apply ako, nung August, so June 2019, nasabihan I was selected as a principal candidate. August to October, we were sponsored TOEFL or NGRE for US admissions. They usually require it. And then we selected 4 universities, no, for admission. So Johns Hopkins, Washington, North Carolina, and UC Berkeley ang pinili ko. Then the university decisions came out in March of this year. And then we were placed in the universities of our choice, no, in April and May. And then June, July, August, September, preparing na to for departure for the US. However, sa ngayon may COVID, so fully online semester. I started last month, fully online. Next slide, please. So I think at this stage in my life, no, in my postgrad studies, and some other people are just starting, ang context namin ay it's a toss between studying now or deferring to a later date. Since yung iba may options, and I think that's also relevant for you, no, kasi you are just deciding if now or later. So lots of uncertainties with COVID-19 despite countries experiencing wins in infection control na parang when will it end? Babalik ba? May surges ba? Para ba tong 1918 flu pandemic? What are the long-term implications? And will schools reopen? And so pwede tayong mag-isip-isip, decide if we want to study now or defer to a later time. So these are just points for consideration. If you study now, you should be prepared to start remotely. So that includes equipment, laptop, internet, at other devices, time management. Ang hirap yung iba kasi nag-work, they maintain work, tapos full-time studies. That's what I do now, no? Medyo mahirap pero kaya. Time zone differences, especially if US, 12 to 14 hours difference. So be prepared to study at 1 a.m., 3 a.m. classes. Medium to be used for classes, ano ba? Kung ikaw ay nagtatrabaho pa, full-time or part-time. It might be difficult to do networking online, no? Zoom calls or WhatsApp. Medyo mahirap siguro and other people might be uncomfortable. And you will miss the in-campus experience, no? And if you study later, you will have more time to prepare, in-person classes more likely. However, baka wala ng funding, hindi natin sure, we can't forecast. We will delay acquiring skill sets and knowledge, and we might lose interest along the way. So, isipan and balance. And I think this is one of my last slides. Next slide, please. So for more information for the Fulbright grant, please visit their website and Facebook page. And their office has been relocated to Mandaluyong. And last, I think my quote dito from Senator William Fulbright, that the essence of intercultural education is for us to acquire empathy, that others will see how we see it, and for others to allow them, for them to see what we failed to see as well. And it is also to erode a culturally rooted mistrust, no, which sets us apart, and cultural exchange is an avenue of hope. So thank you to my Fulbright batchmates for all of these tips. I just consolidated. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Joey, for your presentation. I hope you guys learned a lot from how to apply to Fulbright and how to make the most out of your applications to the different scholarship programs that we've shared so far. So now for the question and answer, BA, are you ready to take it away?
I hope I'm ready. Hello to everyone. Ang daming napag-usapan, and I hope not everyone is not overwhelmed as I see the chat room. Sunod-sunod yung questions, and Some of our speakers and panelists are already answering the questions in the chat room, but we selected a few. So anyone can answer these questions. Just take the mic. So the first question is it okay to apply for a scholarship while you are working?
For me,
Yeah.
yes. Because you can't just stop your life just because you're looking for other opportunities, diba? So for me, while I was working, I was already opening my doors. I subscribed to email list with emailing opportunities. So I'm just scanning through opportunities, looking into what I can apply for, what are the opportunities there is, and then just trying. Because it doesn't mean that just because you tried for something, like you applied for something, you'll automatically get it. So just stay with your job for now until you figure out what to do next.
All right, thank you, Geisha. So for the next question is, how many universities should one apply to considering application fees for each university? Meron ba kayong reach and safety schools when applying?
Well, for me, my strategy was to just apply as many as I can. And pinipili ko yung mga walang fees. For UK universities, marami yung walang fees. And for isang strategy also is to pick your priority school na feeling mo ay mataas yung standards. But then also pick universities that like safety universities, like yung mas madaling makakuha ng offers. So, yes, for Chevening kasi you need 3 universities in the list, right? But I think I applied for 4 and then I got like 3 offers. So, maganda yung as much as you can.
All right, thank you very much. Next question. I think Brian can answer this kasi siya yung nag-talk about motivation letters.
Yeah.
So, combine to ng 2 questions. What resources did you study when working on your motivation letter? And what are your tips?
Right. Okay. So, because it really depends on the context of what you want to apply for. Because my time, it was masters in dance and anthropology. So most of my classmates are actually professional dancers, and really like dance scholars and all that. So parang they're really good. They really know what they're doing. So with what I did with my motivation letter really is I told them front and center very honestly, I'm not a professional dancer. I don't know how it works, but I'm passionate when it comes to dancing. Kasi mine is also connected with an audition reel. So may pa YouTube video pa sila. So I visualized this passion. So may audition ako na I was just dancing around a barangay and then may mga pumapasok na aso, may walang just very honest and very open. Hindi ko kailangang magpaganda. I don't need to say anything, but it's really just all about honesty. So yun, that's how I package myself during that time. I think binili naman nila. So yeah.
All right. Thank you, Brian. So, isa pa. Sige, we have 2 more questions. I think pwede i-direct natin to kay Joey. As you mentioned, sa Fulbright, field of study can be anything. Kahit ano. So, one of the questions is, what if your field is different from the one that you're applying to? Na kunwari, BS mo ay different to your master's na ina-apply mo sa Fulbright.
Personally, wala akong kakilalang may ganun. Siguro hindi ko pa nakikilala silang lahat. But I think you must have substantial professional experience to back it up. So hindi lang naman educational background yung nag-account. So work experience knows at least 2 years. So I think that would be enough. So kung hindi pa match yung gusto mo doon yung gusto mo pag-aralan and you don't have sufficient experience, you must ask yourself if that's what you really want kasi hindi mo pa naman na-experience. Might as well gain connections, expand your network for you to be able to gain some experience on the matter and then really assess if that's what you really want. And then you apply for it.
All right, thank you, Joey. So ito yung question, medyo mainit tong tanong na to. Anyone can answer, but I'm not sure if anyone has been rejected here, but how do you deal with scholarship rejections?
Well, for my master's program, I didn't get rejected because I just really focused on program. But for my PhD, I applied to six programs. First 5, they all rejected me. I think it takes a lot of like just believing in yourself, but because it's not really it's not you, okay? Don't think about that it's your fault. They're just really looking for something that is not probably you. So you can just, there are a lot of programs, it's just a matter of like really applying and looking who wants to take you. So it's so don't take it personally. There's really a lot of things happening between the panel. They have a lot of different like opinions and comments. And even during that day, probably hindi sila nakakain ng lunch. So they just don't want to, diba? So there's a lot of factors playing into that. So it's not you. So don't feel bad about yourself. Just keep on trying. That's it.
All right, thank you, Brian. Pearl, meron ba kayong insights about rejection, if ever?
Yeah, so I think kapag meron tayong rejection, I think it's a matter of how we perceive din yung rejection. So you can think of it as like a redirection. Maybe it's not really for you, and maybe in the future you will thank the one who rejected you because it redirected you to your passion. So I think it's really a matter of how you look at it.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, sige.
Yeah, I just think of it as a learning opportunity. Kasi trying is free naman. So you only really fail when you stop trying.
All right, so those are great questions and great answers, pero hindi natin masasagot lahat kasi overtime na yata tayo. However, the chat box is open and our panelists can reply to your questions via chat. So right now, 5-minute break muna tayo, refreshments, wee break before we proceed to the next set of speakers. Thank you very much, everyone. So we take 5.
Hi, everyone. 5 minutes is up, and now we're about to start the second batch. Okay pa ba kayo? Nakapag-stretching na ba kayo and all that? CR break, coffee break, water break. Yeah, so we'll now proceed with the second batch of our speakers for this evening, and we would like to apologize in advance if we might go a little bit over time, but I hope that you guys find the overtime worth it because there's a lot of information being given to you. And from my personal experience applying to graduate school before, I don't have these informations webinars before, and it's really a great help to look back and see that these speakers are providing these informations for all of us here. So now, proceeding to introducing our next batch of speakers. So from the Asia and Oceania, ang place na punong-puno ng mga magagandang binibini at ginoo, according to Miss Universe. So we'll start with Jason Alacapa. So he was a recipient of Australia Scholarship Awards. He did 2 masters, Master of Public Health with focus on economics and Master of Health Management at the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia. He describes this feat as one of the best decisions he made since the scholarship offers pre-mobilization, on-award, and reintegration engagement activities na hindi natin nakikita sa ibang scholarship programs. It also has a very concrete mechanism to give back, and at the same time, he was able to pursue 2 different degrees at one time, even though mas expensive siya on the end of the scholarship. Next speaker is Charles John Gunay. Charles is a licensed agricultural and biosystems engineer. He was also a college instructor before going to Tokyo Metropolitan University in Japan for his graduate studies. He is a recipient of MEXT scholarship, researching on long-term changes in geophysical conditions of a mountainous and forested watersheds using river discharge and sediment models, as well as climate trend analysis. Our third speaker for this region is Karen Mejos, who was awarded a scholarship by the Korean government named Korean Government Scholarship Program. She took her MS in Nutritional Science and Food Management at Ewha Women's University in South Korea. She is interested in the impact of early life nutrition on health, as well as understanding more about the mechanistic aspects of nutritional programming. Fourth speaker is Kevin Garland, who was awarded the Richard Limley Scholarship and is taking a Master of IT in Business at Singapore Management University. He worked for more than 5 years before deciding to pursue what he described as was once just a dream, which is pursuing graduate education. And last, but definitely not the least, papahubali ba naman ang Pilipinas? We have Aiko Love del Rosario, who is also one of the co-founders of Science Chat PH and a recipient of DOST Picard Great Scholarship. She is taking her Master of Science in Marine Science at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She is a physics girl turned physical oceanographer who, after working in the industry for 3 years, decided to study swirls and blobs in the oceans using radar and satellites. So we have 5 more speakers for this evening session. Umaga kasi dito, nalilito na ako. So, pasensya na guys, medyo sabog ang time zone difference ko. So, our second batch of speakers are ready. Now, let's get ready to listen to more narratives about scholarships and graduate school applications, starting off with Jace. You can now start sharing your screen.
Yep, I am sharing my screen. Can you confirm that you can see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, Jace.
All right, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I am Jason, and for my part, as promised, I'll be delivering the talk entitled The Australia Awards Advantage. I'll be sharing top 10 insider tips why choose an Australia Awards scholarship. Brief background about me, I finished nursing and medicine at the University of the Philippines, Manila. Yes, kaibigan ko si Joey, magkalapit kami ng batch sa med school. I finished MBA at the Asian Institute of Management under full scholarship. I took a non-degree MBA exchange program at the Yale School of Management. I finished a dual master's at the UNSW Sydney. And currently, I'm a professional doctorate student in public health. It's a part-time program which Mostly online, but there's an in-face component. And yes, schoolmate ko ulit si Joey. And by the way, sa UNSW, Karen Mejos, our speaker from EWA Women's University, I met her there at Sydney. I would say I'm a professional student, but it doesn't mean that if you're studying, you cannot work at the same time. This slide shows my current affiliation. So I co-founded two institutions, which I currently lead, an NGO called Innovations for Community Health, a niche consulting firm, Meta Health, which answers a big need for universal healthcare. I do local and international consulting, one with the biggest TB NGO based in The Hague. And I do a lot of independent consulting with USAID. In a snapshot, this slide shows the outline of my presentation. As you can see, it's a bit nuanced. Sorry, Jules and team. I know there's a lot of information that will be given by my great co-speakers, and a lot of these are parallel and similar. May konting pagkakaiba lang, but I believe the information provided in the respective websites of these scholarships are really, really comprehensive enough. So the link is below. You can check it for AustraliaAwardsPhilippines.org. So a lot of information are there. So I'll be highlighting some of the key aspects that might interest you why pursue or choose also to apply with an Australia Awards scholarship. All right, let's start. So at this time, perhaps you have a goal. You're thinking of studying abroad, or just perhaps maybe I could study abroad. I'm already tired of what's happening here in the Philippines. So you started looking out for different opportunities. Fulbright, Chevening, Erasmus Mundus. You have a lot of questions. Do I apply first for the scholarship? Do I apply first for the university? But quick answer, it varies. Now, I would like to offer to you my experience with Australia Awards. It's the bilateral scholarship opportunity offered by the Australian government with different governments, including the Philippines. Specifically, I studied at the University of New South Wales. It's ranked 43rd as one of the 43rd best universities according to QS for 2020. And a lot of the pictures I'll be showing here are actually my photos when I studied abroad. And this is the actual hashtag which I used when I studied abroad. So this is me in one of the iconic landmarks of UNSW, our library, which I miss a lot. I'm sure Karen can see this more often now. It's a snap of our university along UNSW Mall, about a 2-kilometer walk going to the middle of the campus. The quadrangle, my ID. And now, of course, Sydney, which is famed for the Sydney Opera House. So let me take you to a journey to Sydney, to Australia and beyond by sharing the 10 Australia Awards advantage that you may find why choose to be an Australia Awards scholar. First, there are generous entitlements. And yes, I am not joking when I say generous. It is one of the most generous, having scoped all the different scholarship. This will let you study, this will let you enjoy your life as a scholar, because it's very true to the mantra of Australia. You do not only go there to study, but also to enjoy. So what are these different entitlements? Of course, tuition fees and other school fees. And in my case, I was placed into a dual degree. That's double the tuition, they paid for it. Language exam and placement, yes, they will pay for your TOEFL, IELTS, IBT, or whatever. In my case, I took it 1 year before my application to Australia Awards. They reimbursed my application fee. There's also an establishment allowance. The establishment allowance, this is like a startup capital that you will use when you land in Australia. This is about 300,000 pesos when you arrive in Australia. There's also a fortnightly stipend, meaning every 2 weeks, and a student support fund. The fortnightly stipend is around 100 to 150,000 every month. And there's a student support fund for you to be able to attend different conferences locally and abroad. And also you can use this for tutoring services in case nahihirapan ka dun sa mga subjects mo. There's also an opportunity to bring significant others. And when I say significant others, it could be family, wife, husband, or partner. And this is inclusive of any gender. So if you have a same-sex couple, yes, you could bring your partner to Australia to be with you during the course of your study. They also place an importance or emphasis for people with disabilities. So meaning, I even encountered scholars who are visually impaired, with some physical mobility problems, and they even provide different opportunities. You can bring a company with you that they will pay for the allowance or the stay. They can also give you specialized equipment such as a wheelchair, which is really automated and high-tech, free for your use while you're there in Australia. Of course, it includes run-of-the-mill airfare and health insurance. Second, we have the Reentry Action Plan. It is a concrete platform of giving back. So it's like a project that will be prepared before application. You will be studying something related to your REAP, and you will apply upon returning. I would say this is the greatest equalizer of applications. If you say, hey, I don't have a good academic standing, this is the right scholarship for you, because if you have a REAP which is a parallel with the priority interest of the Australian government and it's well crafted, you may be able to get an Australian scholarship. There's also a big cohort of scholars. So there's 30 to 60 per batch. But please note that there are two kinds of scholars. We have the open scholars and the targeted scholars. Targeted scholars are those belonging to a government institution. Am I referring to any government institution? No. There are only specific partner universities, partner department or agencies, such as the Civil Service Commission, DPWH, Commission on Human Rights, etc. So they have their own internal selection process and they forward the names to Australia Awards. For the open category, this is the competitive bunch. So half of this batch would be belonging to this open category. Some snaps on the left side, that's my family, Australia Awards family, my housemates. Can get to travel with them in one place. We usually host people in our house because we have a big house. So when you travel, like this one is in Melbourne, they could also host us in return. We have what we call the IAP, the Introductory Academic Program. It eases your way into Australian education and life. So you will go in Australia 1 month ahead. They will teach you how to adjust to Australian culture. They will teach you how to adjust to Australian education, because this is patterned after the British educational system. In the Philippines, we use the American educational system, and they are very different. They will expose you to different cultures, go to different places. It's like a more of a setting in phase. There are a lot of programs that they could do while having the Australia Award Scholarship. The government gives you a lot of enrichment programs on gender, startup, innovation, connection, professional networking, etc. There's also the Student Support Fund, which I mentioned you can use for workshop, conferences, and tutoring services. For me, I attended conferences in Japan and other parts of Australia. Extracurriculars, of course, this will enrich your life there. As a very extracurriculars guy, this is important. I would always say you go abroad to study. It's like 30% of the reason why you are there. 70% is to create networks that will last for life. So I've joined several competitions. This was a startup competition. I was the president of the Filipino Student Society. We rebranded it during my time, and we became the best organization at the University of New South Wales. Our cousin, the Sydney Filipino Society at the University of Sydney, they also won as the best organization. Bibo talaga ang mga Pinoy. We established a statewide council at New South Wales. We also established a nationwide council for the Filipinos in the whole of Australia. So there's a lot of opportunities to be involved, such as this one. This is the first ASEAN summit hosted by the Australian government. So with me, there's Prime Minister Turnbull, there's Foreign Minister Julie Bishop, and I saw the 9 presidents of the 10 different ASEAN states. Unfortunately or fortunately, I was unable to see President Duterte. He was represented by then Secretary Alan Peter Cayetano. Work opportunities, yes, you could work 20 hours per week during the semester. Beyond the semester, there's no limit. And if you're a higher degree student, meaning Masters of Philosophy, Masters of Research, or PhD, there's no limit. And how much is the rate? If you work using, let's say, a blue-collar job, you will earn 20 Australian dollars per hour. It's a relatively high standard of living in Australia. And if you work in research, you could earn from 30 to 70 Australian dollars per hour. So I had an opportunity to work at the University of New South Wales at the local health district at the Ingham Institute, where I did several research parallel to my interests. So some snaps with my colleagues in Australia. Australian culture and travel. I guess this is one thing that you need to know. Studying is not only about the university. It's not only about the degree. It's not only about the supervisor. It's also about the culture of the country that you will be going into. Because if you're going to a very traditional country, expect an 8 to 5 working environment, a very stringent work environment. But if you're doing like in Australia, which is very laid back and relaxed, they're very much flexible in terms of their delivery. And there's a lot of opportunities to travel. So Sydney, travel to Vivid Sydney during June, see Hunter Valley perhaps with friends, at Melbourne CBD, some snaps in Melbourne perhaps, Uluru in the central Australian desert, the Wave Rack Formation at Western Australia, the Great Barrier Reef. Yes, I was able to dive under as well during my term as a student, see different animals in Australia, also see the snow. Perhaps travel in New Zealand. It's really, really awesome there. Travel elsewhere because you're already in Australia. Well, just fly 6 hours to Honolulu, Hawaii, and attend conferences in Europe. So what I'm trying to get here is that you get a lot of opportunities to study, get work opportunities, and get conferences. So what I usually do is I attend conferences and workshops, and I do travel on the side. I was even able to do my top 2 bucket list. I was able to do skydiving at Queenstown, New Zealand. I was able to see the aurora in Iceland. Lastly, I guess an important thing, your engagement with Australia Awards does not end after finishing the degree. There's reintegration. This is the difficult part for scholars. A lot of my colleagues would agree to this. And there's a membership with Australian Global Alumni. It gives you continuous engagement, Alumni Excellence Awards, of which I got the Young Achiever Award last year. And then we have the Alumni Grant Scheme, which is like a 500K, 1 million pesos, wherein you can do research or developmental projects aligned to the degree that you have studied. In conclusion, there are a lot of things why I choose Australia Awards. But as I always say to my mentee, getting a master's is a mean to an end. It's not the end. So you should envision your career first and then see a master's that fit to your career. Plan. Seek mentoring, ask us. I'll be sharing my contact details later on, and persist. Apply and apply and apply. I'll go with what Joey mentioned. Apply and forget. And ang scholarship kung para sa'yo talaga yan. Perhaps my last question for you, are you ready to take a leap? Because this last video will show you a peek of what the Australia Awards can give you.
Hi, Jason. I think there's no sound on the video.
All right, so despite technical difficulties, nabasa niyo naman. So I guess I'll end my slide with contact details. So you can take a quick snap, and happy to connect if you're interested to apply for Australia Awards. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Jason. Now for our next speaker, we have Charles, and Pierce will be sharing Charles' slides.
I will share my slides. I message Pierce.
Okay. Yep.
So is it available already?
Yes, we can see it.
So hello everyone, konnichiwa. So I'm Charles from Tokyo Metropolitan University, and my presentation is about the MEXT scholarship application process and my journey as a young Pinoy scientist here in Tokyo, Japan. So my presentation is entitled Konnichihu, Konnichiwa, Konnichihao, Konnichiwa, answering the who's, what's, and how's of postgrad applications in Japan. So first, konnichiwa, I'm Charles. I graduated BS Agricultural and Biosystems Engineering from University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So my major is on soil and water conservation, which is already related to what I'm pursuing now, which is a Master of Engineering in Civil and Environmental Engineering since April 2019. And my research theme is on the long-term changes of in geophysical condition of Oguchi Reservoir catchment using water and sediment models and climate trend analysis. So these are my recent research outputs. So I just want to clarify that my master's here does not require any publication. But of course, if you have significant findings on your research, your supervisor, your sensei will encourage you to present it or to publish it on an international reputable journal. So you can also scan the QR code for my Google Scholar profile. Konichi, who are eligible for this scholarship? So you need to be, well, of course, you're a Filipino of less than 35 years old of the application. So you are born on or after April 2, 1986 if you want to enter on 2021. So the embassy already opened the applications and the deadline of submission is already finished last July 30, and they also held consultation schedules. I think the last day was July 24. So in terms of the academic background, you need to complete a 16-year curriculum or 18-year curriculum kapag medical fields. And then you should be age 22 or older to take the entrance or qualification examination. So yung eligibility naman na third is yung na-overlook ng karamihan. So you need to be particularly interested in Japan and its people. Kailangan enthusiastic ka talaga to deepen your understanding in Japan, and you are mentally and physically capable to do research while adapting yourself here. Because ayun, mahirap na kasi yung research work. So syempre yung kailangan mentally ready ka, physically ready ka for the extreme weather. So iba rin ang winter at summer dito. So mas malala rin, lalo ngayong summer, parang mas na-miss ko yung Pilipinas kasi mas mainit dito pala, tas walang hangin sa gabi. So talagang pagpapawisan ka kahit naka-shirt ka lang din. So Konichi, what are the scholarship benefits? So monthly allowance of 146,000 yen for research students, that's about 70,000 pesos. So tataas siya ng 1,000 yen for master students and 1,000 yen, another 1,000 yen for doctoral students. Bale, sagot din ni MEXT ang matriculation, tuition, and entrance admission fees. And then your air ticket to and from Japan. So the complete details, I put the link on my slide. So from MEXT, from the Embassy of Japan in the Philippines, and the frequently asked questions. So Konichi, how? This is the timeline of my application. So I started from October 2017 up to the notification of my success in June 2018. So first, you need to have a close communication with the potential supervisor. So in this case, you need to let him or her know your motivation and skills. So these are just the basic requirements: application form, your passport, your curriculum vitae with list of academic papers, your motivation letter, and your study plan. So and then next on December, actually ito ay special case yung akin kasi sa naiya ako na interview, pero usually it's on Skype lang. So it's more on a personal and technical one. So I will show on the next slide the usual commonly asked questions. And then the deadline of first screening is on January. And then the results of the first screening and submission for the requirements for second screening, which is mas madami. So application form, study plan, letter of recommendation from college dean, birth certificate, TOR, diploma in English, certificate of ranking, certificate of grading system, abstracts of technical papers, TOEFL score. Actually, yung TOEFL score ng mga Filipinos dito sa university namin is wini-wave na rin ng mga sensei, ng mga supervisors, because I think may tiwala na rin sila sa English skills nating mga Pinoy, since yun nga, English ang ginagamit nating medium of instruction since pre-elementary. And the notification of success in June, and visa-related visa-related documents and the pre-departure orientation in September and pati yung flight din. So, ang matitip ko lang sa motivation letter, since nasa engineering kami and physical sciences, you need to highlight your research skills. You need to highlight also kung saan ka nagtrabaho, ano yung employment history mo, and then of course your achievements, of course. Pero yun nga, hindi naman siya necessary kasi hindi rin naman ako honor graduate, hindi ako top ng board exam. So research skills and motivation lang din yung puhunan ko for my application. So these were photos of interview and pre-departure orientation. So my potential supervisor way back then treat us in Max's restaurant. I think this is in NAIA Terminal 3. So these are the list of commonly asked interview questions. Sa Japan kasi, mas technical sila. I mean, mas focus sila sa research skill mo, or well, at least in the engineering or in the physical sciences. So they will ask, what are the methods you employed on your bachelor's thesis? What are your significant findings? And then what are your research interests? Anong model or computer programs yung nagamit mo on your previous research? Marunong ka ba mag-Python? Marunong ka ba mag-GIS or SPSS? Ano pa ba? How certain are you that you can accomplish what you wrote on your study plan? And then, why do you want to study in Japan? Importante din yon. Why do you want to study in our university? Ano yung edge ng university namin? Ba't kami yung consider mo for your master's degree? And then, what skills can you contribute to our laboratory projects? So, I just want to clarify that my MEXT scholarship is via university recommendation. This is not embassy recommendation, so it's a bit more close contact to the potential supervisor rather than parang selection ng multiple universities. And then May 2018, kinukulit na ako ng immediate supervisor ko, which is the department chair kung saan ako nag-work dati as instructor in UPLB. So tinanong ko what are the chances that I may get accepted. So he said that the slot for MEXT scholarship in PMU is 6 and my rank is 2nd. So I already assume na makakapasok na ako. So in June, dumating yung acceptance letter and then pre-departure orientation sa embassy noong September. So while waiting for the results, so you need to keep yourself busy and productive, and you do not wait constantly for emails kasi ang mga supervisors, they're really busy. So if meron naman silang masagap na urgent announcement about your application, it's already okay. So maghintay ka na lang. And then actually yun nga, hindi naman tayo lahat prayerful, and lagi naman sinabi na rin ng mga previous speakers, what is truly yours will eventually be yours. So kung para sa'yo talaga yan, of course, you don't need to worry about it most of your time. So what do I expect and what to do next if I get in? So you need to learn basic phrases. Ito yung mahirap when you will study on a non-English speaking country. So you need to learn their greetings, self-introduction, responses in supermarket, mall, and restaurant staff. Actually, ang usually lang naman na tinatanong, sa 7-Eleven, if iinit nila yung food mo, or if sa restaurant, if ida-dine or take out, and then sa supermarket and mall, if you have point card or you want to request for a plastic bag kasi may binabayaran yun dito. So for sustainable living, you always bring your shopping bag. You need to download language translator mobile apps if in case you're lost and traveling alone. And you need to shop winter clothes in the Philippines, lalo kung malapit ka sa Divisoria or some cheap stores kasi medyo mahal yung mga branded clothes in a developed country. Pero meron namang mga second-hand shops dito sa Japan na pwede mong bilhan if di ka naman maselan or you're tipid, ganun, kuripot. So you need to include also your favorite Filipino snacks and condiments on your luggage, and please also include items that will help you overcome your homesickness and anxiety. And most importantly, save money. So na-mention kayo na ni Sir Jace nga na sa Australia, mayroon silang establishment allowance. Sa case ng Japan, yung establishment, ikaw muna magbabayad, and then further sa March ka gagraduate, buo naman yung allowance at the end. So take home money muna yon. So yun yung mismong parang pinakabayad sa establishment mo. dito. So I think maybe 70 to 80,000 is already sufficient to pay for your apartment rent and pambuhay mo sa sarili mo from fourth week of September to third week of October habang wala pang allowance. And of course, yung mga insurance na ina-offer ng Japan government. So what can I do if my application is unsuccessful? Gaya ng sinabi nga ni Pearl, is more on your perspective. But if you really, really wanted it, you need to get involved in research projects to boost your qualification, especially if nasa engineering and physical sciences ka nga. The second one is you earn units from master programs in the Philippines. It's not actually taking up masters in the Philippines is not bad. Pero if gusto mo lang talaga magpataas lang din ng qualification mo, hindi ka honor graduate, hindi ka top ng board exam like me. Yun, in a way siguro makakatulong din siya. And of course, you can reapply again next year. I think MEXT does not have a policy of hindi pa naman nila binaban yung mga second time or intakers. So you can try as long as you want because there are instances talaga na yung pool of applicants, if puro magna or summa cum laude yung mga yon from the top 4 universities, and may iwan ka talaga. May chance na maiwan ka talaga. Hindi dahil hindi ka magaling, pero dahil tough lang din yung competition. So these are the graduate studies and research in the middle of pandemic. So in the form of memes. So it's very funny kasi nga yun nga we are on a work from home setup and aminin na natin na hindi talaga tayo fully productive. So we need to have a daily routine. Kailangan meron tayong tasks na nililista at the start of your day na matatapos mo at the end of the day. So para masabi natin na naging efficient tayo. And then actually funny yung meme ni Squidward kasi in-encourage kami minsan ng supervisor namin na pumunta na lang during weekends kasi nga konti yung tao sa university. Usually security officials lang na roaming around the campus. So I wish I weren't here right now. So ayun, and also pag pumapasok sa lab, do your own contact tracing na so para isulat mo kung saan yung mga whereabouts mo, kung ano yung schedule mo, na if in case may mag-positive sa research institute nyo or sa university, is matatrack kung close contact ka or hindi. Well, sana hindi, pero it's good na meron kang reference. So, konnichiwa, I think this is the last part of my presentation. So, there's life beyond research. So, the first picture is my first winter here in Japan. Second and third picture is my conference. Second picture is my conference presentation in Auckland. And then nag-sightseeing na rin ako sa Hobbiton sa New Zealand, sa Mata-Mata. And the fourth one is a recent recognition from the department as one of the best presenters during the master's midterm presentation. Actually, this is kind of overwhelming kasi during the poster session itself, medyo inisnub talaga ako ng mga Japanese professors because I was presenting in English. So it's really, really, nagulat din ako na ba't ako. And syempre yung hobby ko na collecting Pokemon plushies in arcade machines. And of course, pag may mga student exchange programs yung university, dinadala namin sila doon and we also reward them with the toys. And Filipino community here in our university na kasama ko mag-celebrate during special holidays. So I think this picture, it was last Christmas. And of course, my friends who visited me here in Tokyo na, well, sila din yung nagiging reason kung ba't ako nakapagala around Tokyo. So that's in Tokyo Skytree, Shinjuku, one of the busiest cities. Of course, Tokyo Disneyland, Shibuya, where the crossing, and also one of the busiest cities, Asakusa, for cultural and Buddhism heritage. Ichiran, the world's best ramen according to some tourists, and Akihabara, the anime center. So this last slide, Ariana Grande showing you how to graduate. So in her latest album, so Thank You Next. So in our case, it's Thank You MEXT. If you have questions, you can email me and contact me through LinkedIn or Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles, for your presentation. Next up is Karen. Are you going to share your slide or is Pierce going to share it for you?
Share the slide.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll keep the ball rolling. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm Karen, and today I'll be delivering about how to apply and win a KGSP or GKS graduate scholarship. So next slide, about me. I've actually been a scholar all my life. I graduated in high school under the private school scholarship and then earned my bachelor's under Quezon City Mayor Sonny Belmonte Scholarship. And then before completing my final requirements for my bachelor's degree in UP Diliman with a degree in community nutrition, I then discovered about the Korean government scholarship program. So I prepared the documents and submitted my application in the same week because that was when the deadline was sometime around April, and then received my outcome in July the same year. Now I am currently living in Sydney in my last leg of my PhD, so fingers crossed I'll be able to submit my thesis in a few months, and then at the University of New South Wales. So yes, I am vouching that Jace Alacapa, the previous speaker, was also a colleague and our former president of UNSW Filipino Student Society. I am currently also a casual academic teaching for UNSW and Kenvale College, teaching nutrition subjects. So for the next slide, I am going to share about an overview of my scholarship, which is the Korean Government Scholarship Program, or KGSP. In Korean, it's called 대한민국 정부 초청 장학금. It's an academic scholarship funded and managed by the National Institute for International Education, or we call it NIIED, a branch of the Ministry of Education in the Republic of Korea. So for more information, you can click that link. So go to nied.go.kr for lots of information about their programs. In 2010, the KGSP have been integrated and branded as the Global Korea Scholarship. And that's why they are called together. So they mean the same thing for when I refer to KGSP as GKS. So don't be confused. And right now, KGSP is still widely used, although officially we name it GKS. So for the next slide, for KGSP, it is a full ride scholarship. This scheme is designed to invite international talent to South Australia. You get a monthly allowance of 1 million Korean won, which is roughly $1,000. There is also a research allowance and a settlement allowance for when you arrive in Korea for your first month. There's also a language training fee, which is fully covered. And sometimes, depending on the host university, they give you a monthly food voucher costing up to 200 Korean won, depending on where you are. Dissertation, printing costs, medical insurance. Yes, your insurance is also covered. So for the next slide, I am going to talk more about the language and cultural training. So prior to starting their degree studies, the KGSP scholars are required to take 1 year of intensive language. Yes, I am fluent in Korean. The Language Institute is usually different from where you're actually pursuing your graduate studies, and all scholars are required to obtain at least level 3 or intermediate test of proficiency in Korean test. So before they can continue to their graduate studies. The normal duration is 1 year, but if you're really good at Korean, it can be shortened to as short as 6 months. So if you think of a KGSP being just stuck in a four-corner classroom, that's how you envision your language training, no, you're actually wrong. Korean culture is so beautiful and unique that there's so much room for discovery of their culture. So for the next slide, there is language and cultural training Korean body system. So some host universities during the cultural training offers a body system, which means that outside your language classes, you'll also be sticking around a buddy. They allocate for each color, they match it depending on your character, and you share the same interests. And for the cultural training, there is with midway cultural classes and trips. And next slide. If you're not really convinced enough, there's more. So during my time, NIIED sponsored a number of domestic travels, including free plane tickets, food and accommodation, such as our trip to Jeju Island and different other regions in Korea. So being a Korean government scholar in Korea, that's what differentiates you from the other international students in Korea, because they put you first in line when they want to promote different platforms in Korea, to expand their global connections, such as when they wanted to promote their tourism. And next slide. The last scholarship benefit that I'd like to talk about is the graduate school. Where I went is in Ewha Women's University, in Korean it's called Ide Yeoja Daehakyu, Department of Nutritional Science and Food Management. They have the world-class facilities in the discipline of vitamin metabolism and nutrigenetics. So that's how I upskilled in that kind of discipline. For next slide, if you are interested, I would like to talk more about the requirements and application process. Next slide. For period and eligibility, you can refer more information at this site. First, you must prove your citizenship from your country, which is in this case Philippines. So I think a passport would do, and also some qualifications would depend on what kind of program you're applying for, because GKS also offers scholarship for undergraduates and those doing particular research fellowships, as well as those who would like to do a Korean language training. So it's not just for people doing master's and doctoral degrees. For next slide. The recruitment period for applying to KGSP is usually around February to March each year. In my case, I discovered it quite late. It was back in April and I only had 1 week to prepare. So I had to prepare all that within the week, got my recommendation letter. Announcements are released around June to July, so expect a little bit of delays. I got mine around July, and that gave me only a month to prepare before leaving for Korea. On the Study in Korea website, there will be a notice uploaded around that time with the forms required for documents that you will need for submission and the next plans to take when you get accepted. So for the requirements, will be on the next slide. If you decide to apply, you will need these documents, but for the purpose of this presentation, I will only be discussing numbers 1 to 5. These are the forms that you will have to fill out for round 1. So there are 3 rounds, also depending on which track or pathway that you would like to apply for. So there's the application form. It will ask for your personal information, what field you expect to study in, your grades in your prior university, etc. So yes, grades do matter, but you don't necessarily have to come from a previous university in the Philippines, so don't worry about coming from regional. As a matter of fact, I know so many KGSP from the regional universities in the Philippines, and as long as you've proven your grades are good. 2 is personal statement form. It's a mini essay that goes over the points of your motivation for applying for the program. Then the statement of purpose form, and then recommendation letter, at least 2. A good thing about the KGSP requirement is that number 1, you don't need a detailed research proposal unless you're applying for a research fellowship. And second, no need for an English test. So you don't need to do all of that, although it would be nice, extra points, if you submit that along with your application. It's also important to note that if any of the documents are not in English, which is very unlikely in the Philippines, then you need to have it officially translated. So for the next slide, I will be talking about the application. There are 2 kinds of pathways. One is what we call the embassy track and the university track, which is somehow similar with the Japanese government scholarship. So for the embassy track, you will submit all documents to the Korean embassy in the Philippines. You get to choose 3 prospective universities that you want to apply to. You have to pass the 3rd round of selection for you to get and receive the scholarship. For the university track, you will submit all documents to the university of your choice. You need to only choose one university. You cannot submit to more than one, otherwise you will be disqualified. You receive the scholarship after you pass the 2nd round of selection. So the selection is then progressed into 3 rounds for embassy track and 2 rounds for university track. So I guess in this case, the quota is also higher for the university track, and that gives you much more options because you also miss the 1st round if you are pursuing the university track. So that gives you higher chances of getting the scholarship. What if you don't know which universities are excellent in Korea for your program? You have to do your research. So it is hard for the embassy to recommend a university for you. I advise you to search for the Korean universities ranking in any search engine or consult the studykorea.go.kr for more information about these universities. They will also leave the university's website so you can learn more about the department and the facilities where you will do your graduate school. For the next slide, I am going to discuss about the preparation. When preparing your application, you think about your aims and goals. Are you after a target university that you will not pursue your application should it not be for that university? So think about different scenarios when deciding which track to pursue. Also, guidelines and quotas change every year. Make sure you stay tuned and updated. And connect with the scholars and alumni. Don't be afraid to ask. I'm sure the other speakers may have experience receiving emails from other people, like random Facebook messages, perhaps, asking for advice. I am also welcome. I'm welcome to help you in any way, so I'll leave my contact details later. Lastly, applicants with a test of proficiency in Korean score prior to your application will have better chances of getting the scholarship, and also research and publication experience will have better chances of winning it. So I encourage you to learn Korean if you're really eyeing for this scholarship, because Koreans love foreigners who speak the language. So for the next slide, I will be talking about the personal statement, which is I think this is the kind of motivation letter. It serves as a chance for you to prove yourself from the other applicants. So make sure that you have a specific goal and vision, just like what the other speakers have emphasized. The KGSP personal essay is divided into 4 main parts. So there's motivation, with which you apply for this program, your education and work experience in relation to GKS, your reason for studying in Korea, and other aspects of your background and interests, which may help evaluate your aptitude. And when applying for a master's or doctorate degree, like I said, you don't need to submit your research proposal yet. But then you will need to submit your statement of purpose. So there's your goal and study plan, as well as your future plan and after study. So be honest with your plan. There's no bond in KGSP. Actually, in Korea, you are even encouraged to stay and work in Korean companies. Usually, KGSP scholars get absorbed soon as they graduate. In my case, I wrote that I want to give back to the Philippines, which is what I did. I had 3 years of experience working in the Philippines before I pursued my PhD. So I was honest about it. For the next slide, I will be discussing about the recommendation letter. So who should you get the recommendation letter from? You may get it from any professors or lecturers who have taught you in a university for your graduate program. For the university track, I advise you to get a really good recommendation letter strongly from the department, that shares the similar discipline from the university you wanted to apply for. If your professor or lecturer stay in overseas, you can still get a recommendation letter from them. So a soft copy recommendation will do. And so the waiting game. So for the next slide, what do you do while waiting for the results? Like an old saying, let's hope for the best, but also prepare for the worst. So do plan B and do a plan C, look for other opportunities. What do I expect and what to do next if I get in? Gosh, there is a lot of things to prepare for, especially being prepared to adapt in a new culture. So preparations for the move, savings, take some food that you like, because food in Korea might be quite different, a little bit spicy and salty. Especially if we're coming from the Philippines, take warmer clothes as well, and then prepare for the culture shock. Also spend time with your family and friends as you wait for your upcoming flight. If your application is unsuccessful, then take this experience to improve your application and create your own opportunities. Okay, for the next slide, postgraduate studies during COVID-19. I am actually doing my PhD now, and I know that pursuing a degree is already an isolating experience. So this global pandemic augmented the situation a lot. So it's worse. So please prioritize your mental health. I join online thesis boot camps. So there's several themes online, also depending on where you're from and your time zone. And also do get support from systems in your church and also Filipino student societies where you're in. We have it here in Australia. So when I was doing my KGSP program, we also have a Filipino support society. It's called Korean Filipino Scholars in Korea. Filipino Scholars in Korea. Okay, and this is my last slide. Some additional tips and parting message. So here are some contact information and other useful websites that you may find useful in your application. And I would like to wish you all the best in your application. I would leave a quote by John Quincy Adams, try and fail, but don't fail to try. Also seconding Jace's classic advice, kung para sa'yo talaga yun. Maraming salamat po sa pakikinig, and here is my contact details if you want to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karen, for your presentation about the Korean scholarship programs that we Filipinos can apply to. And now for our next speaker, can we ask for Kevin? Are you ready? Are you gonna share your slide or is Piers gonna do it?
You can proceed in sharing my.
Thank you.
Yes, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. We're going near to the Philippines, so let's stop by at Singapore first. So I'm gonna share my experience as a postgraduate student. To start, this is a little background about myself. I graduated from UP with a BS Statistics program. And I have more than 5 years of work experience before I finally decided to pursue my master's abroad. I have been doing my master's degree at SMU, Singapore Management University, under the Master of IT in Business program in analytics. So yeah, if you are into data science, analytics, artificial intelligence, or digital banking, this is the program that you can apply to. So I am under a scholarship called Richard Limley Scholarship. So this scholarship is kind of unique. It's different from the other scholarships that you've heard, as this scholarship is exclusive for Filipinos, and this scholarship is exclusive to the program that I am in. So Mr. Richard Lee is a philanthropist, and he wanted to give back to like Filipinos by offering this scholarship to So I am actually the first recipient of this scholarship, but for August intake, there are 3 incoming Filipino students under the scholarship. So they actually messaged me on LinkedIn already. So if you want, you can apply for the January intake as well for next year. So in the scholarship, aside from being not paying anything for tuition fee and miscellaneous fees, they give you an allowance of around 4,000 Singapore dollars per term. Yeah, so that's a brief background about the scholarship. Some info about me during my free time. I do Netflix, play badminton, play Nintendo Switch, and I usually travel with my family and friends whenever possible, and if budget permits. Though this is one of the things that I have given up since I started my master's here in Singapore, because the master's here is quite tedious, like time consuming. So one of the things that I kind of sacrificed until I graduate. So for the next slide, yeah, so this is like the timeline of how I got my scholarship and my in the university. So in just 6 months, I was able to, from starting and searching for opportunities until I got accepted, it's just in a span of 6 months. So at around July of last year, I started searching for programs abroad, and I came across SMU, which is the school that I am in, and the program, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Then on September 14th, it's a good thing for me, as they held the first Manila Coffee session. So it's like someone from SMU goes to Manila to discuss about the program and the university. So when I decided to go there, I was actually very nervous because this is the first time I'm gonna do this. But in the end of this session, after like the Q&As, the interviewer actually encouraged me to apply. So after that, I got the list of requirements and all, and yeah, so I decided to apply. So after some time, I have completed the requirements, and once I submitted it, they scheduled an interview. I was interviewed by the program director of the university under the program. So later on, I will give you tips on how like I managed to pass those requirements and interviews. But yeah, after I passed the interview, they gave me conditional admission the next day. So what does this conditional admission mean? It means that I still need to pass an exam, which is GMAT. I received this conditional admission on September 26th. And after that, I reviewed for the exam, which I took on November 21. So for more than a month, I was actually reviewing for the exam. So, and luckily I was able to pass it. So I immediately sent my score to the university, and after that I can be admitted to the school. However, I still don't have a scholarship. But on December 11, I got my scholarship. So this I didn't apply for the scholarship here. So it's the school who is in contact with the scholar, to the donor, and they will be the one who will gonna send the scholarship. I mean the requirements to the donor. Yeah. So, and then on January 1, I already flew here to pursue my master's. So yeah, so that's a brief background of how I was able to go here and pursue my master's. So for the next slide, so these are some like tips I can share. So for in completing your requirements, I would suggest that you need to be organized. You need to have a checklist to know what are the requirements you need to complete. Ask questions if the requirements are unclear. You need to prepare the contact number for your references. I have worked for 5 years, so luckily I was able to save or the number of my previous managers from the previous company, because they are the ones I have worked with for my work experience. So it's best for them to give me recommendation letter. Next is certificate instead of IELTS or TOEFL. In my case, I didn't need to take IELTS or TOEFL. So what I did was I requested for a certificate from the university that I took. It's a certificate that indicates that the medium of instruction in your program in your undergraduate is in English. So I saved 10,000 pesos. So yeah, maybe you can also ask for the university if they can, if you can, instead of taking the exam, you can get the certificate from the university. The next is study for your exams. It's really important because this is the requirement that is black and white. It's either you pass or you fail. So it's better to really do well on this exam. This is not something that is debatable or so you just need to really pass it and give it your best. And then lastly is you need to take note of the deadlines. There's gonna be a lot of deadlines, to be honest, but yeah, you need to take note of them and make sure that you submit everything on time. For the essays and motivation letters, like what the previous speaker said, you need to be honest with your motivation. You need to know, because they will really ask you why did you apply for this program? Why do you want to go here? So you need to, and if you are honest with it, it will really show in your interview. The next is be professional. And the last is let other people proofread your essay or letters. Someone you can trust to really check, because sometimes you might overlook at something. So it's better for them to give you points as well to improve your letters. For the interview, in my case, my interview is on Skype. So but even if it's just on Skype, you need to dress well but comfortable. You need to have a stable internet connection, given that the internet in the Philippines is not that well. So you have to make sure that, and to avoid technical difficulties as well. Then last is you need to practice answering questions. You can actually Google a lot of questions that can be asked during an interview if you want to enter the university. So yeah, need to really practice. And yeah, for the next slide. So while waiting for the results, the first thing I did was to actually rest. Why? Because for the whole duration of my application, I'm working full time. So, and the last step before I waited was I took the exam, right? So it was really a tiring period. I working on the day, and then at night I study, and on the weekends I study as well. So the first thing I did was to rest. I actually took paid time off in my work just to really rest. And the next thing I did is if ever you think you will not make it, but you need to be convinced that you will make it, you can search for other opportunities, because yeah, we can't do anything now. So that's gonna be maybe your plan B if you really wanted to pursue a postgraduate degree. Then this is the time you can also inform your manager or team lead, especially me, since I'm working, I need to inform them, since in my case, I need to resign. So I need to render certain amount of time before I can officially leave the company. Next is to plan. Plan, assuming that you get accepted plan, assuming that you didn't get accepted. So what are the things that you need to plan? You need to, if ever you're gonna be accepted, you need to plan and prepare like mentally, physically, emotionally, because like being away from home is really different. If you're far away from your family, if not, if you feel like if you're not gonna like not gonna be accepted, yeah, like what I said, you can search for other opportunities, because yeah, there's nothing we can do at this moment. So yeah, I guess these are some of the things that we can do while waiting for the results. For the next slide, yeah, challenges I encountered during the pandemic. At the moment, I am a master's student. So during this term, the first challenge I had is dealing with online classes. Um, it's really difficult because I was able to compare it during my first term, wherein like the classes are held in school. The interactions were really lessened. So you need to really make an extra effort to interact with your classmates, to ask questions to your professors outside of the class, because that's the way you will be able to learn more. Because during at school, it's really interesting. Like you'll really hear a lot of different ideas popping up from each side of the classroom during the discussion, and that makes you like learn a lot more. And that's one of the challenges I encountered. The next is networking. Studying in a business school, there are really a lot of networking opportunities that is in the university. During my first term there, like almost every week, a CEO, a managing director goes to the school and discuss about like the companies and all. You can just attend that, and then you can talk to them and discuss your projects and all to build like your networks. But during this season, like those networking opportunities were really lessened. Like I have attended one and it's just online, so it didn't really made an impact. So that's one of the challenges I encountered. The next is internships. Here we have the option to take an internship while studying. Like all of our modules are taken at night. So at the moment, I'm also doing my internship. So I'm working full-time intern and then studying at night. But if you intended to do this is really not a good time to find an internship. It's really hard to find a job, to be honest. So that's one of the effects of this pandemic. And then lastly, it's really hard to manage your time. Like everyone previous speakers have said, it's really difficult to manage your time if you're just at home, to be honest. So it's really a challenge. But yeah, you need to really plan what you are gonna do for the day to really help you with what you're gonna do and what you need to pass and all. Yeah, so for next slide. Yeah, so as my parting message, go for it. Don't be intimidated to apply. Believe in yourself and your capabilities and have the right mindset. So yeah, that's for my parting message. The next slide. Yeah, thank you, La. So yeah, if you have questions, you can message me on LinkedIn. I'm more than willing to answer any of your questions regarding the university and the scholarship that I got. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles, for your presentation. So let's proceed to our last presenter, which is our very own country's scholarship program. So let's welcome Aiko.
Hi everyone! Good evening. Kaya pa ba? Mag-react naman kayo kung kaya pa, at ito na yung huling stretch na ating talk for tonight. Yan. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Aiko. This is about scholarship here in the Philippines. So, paano maging scholar sa sariling bayan? So, here's pa-click naman ng slide. Here's, yan, Catriona Gray version, Philippines. So, next slide, please. So, hi everyone, I'm Aiko. Ako ay isang scholar ng bayan, mandaragat, mananaliksik. So, kasalukuyang nananatili sa bahay sa panahon ng pandemya. So, graduate ako ng Applied Physics, and I was a DOST scholar back then when I was in undergrad. And then after that, I had an adventure in the industry. So, I was a failure analysis engineer, I was a patent analyst, I was a research assistant. So basically, I exhausted all my options in the industry. And at that time, I realized that, okay, hindi ko gusto magpatuloy sa industriya with just my BS Applied Physics degree. So I asked my colleagues and I learned about marine science program in the University of the Philippines. So most of, yung alam ko lang noon ay, okay, merong Marine Science Institute, but I'm not really sure what is going on there. Meron bang opportunity for me as a physics graduate there? Dahil most of the time ang alam ko ay marine biology ang mga nandoon. So, yun, nalaman ko na meron palang physical oceanography laboratory, or there's an oceanography lab in Marine Science Institute, so I applied for it. So right now, I am a great scholar of the DOST Picard project, which is Crucial Current Observation System in the Philippines. So disclaimer lang, I will discuss all my experiences and it will not reflect the views of my university and my scholarship. So next slide, please. Ayan. So, na-discuss na nilang lahat how to apply, how to get into different scholarships. But number one is ask yourself these questions. Kailangan mo ba talaga ng MS degree? Do you really need it? Think about your life goals. Do you really need a graduate? Do you really need to go into graduate studies? And what will you do after graduating and getting your degree? Second is, do I have savings or a safety net? Lahat tayo ay takot pag-usapan ng pera, pero it's something that you should think about if you're going into graduate studies. Because stipend is not equivalent to a salary. You have to realize that stipend is an allowance. So, hindi dapat yun lang ang bumubuhay sa'yo at dapat meron kang backup palagi na mapagkukunan mo ng funds mo. And last is, ask yourself, what do you really want to learn? What kind of research do you want to do? And what skills do you want to gain? So, tanongin mo yung sarili mo, and then from that, you can after you internalize, mo malalaman kung ano yung gusto mo talagang gawin. And then, do a lot of research on what kinds of programs do you want to take for your master's degree. So, iba-iba yung mga kailangan natin, and I will just outline what is the available scholarships here in the Philippines. So, next slide, please. So, ano-ano ang available scholarships sa Pilipinas for masters? There's different types. So, merong government agencies, merong corporate, and merong university-based. So, ang pinakakilala sa Pilipinas ay ang DOST, which is Department of Science and Technology. You can check out the website for the different types of graduate scholarships. So, punta lang kayo dyan sa website na yan. Do your own research and find out alin yung babagay na scholarship para sa degree program ninyo. So, next slide. Wait lang. So, meron ding corporate. So, if you are working in the industry, for example, you want to get into data science and get an MS degree, there are schools that have scholarships to for you, and meron din na nag-a-allow na yung company nila mismo yung magbabayad ng tuition mo and also give you an allowance. So next slide please. So for me, my program is called Graduate Research and Education Assistantship for Technology, or GRATE program. This is offered by DOST PCARD, Philippine Council for Agriculture. Yes, ang haba po ng pangalan, but it covers those in the agriculture, natural resources, and aquatic related na studies and degree program. So it will give you an allowance monthly, thesis grant, and but the catch is that you have to do your thesis under the umbrella of a DOST PCARD funded project. So the next application deadline would be on March 16, 2020. So take note of that if you want to get it. So next slide, please. So my timeline. I got accepted first into my MS program while I was working part-time, and I was paying my own tuition. So back then, I was allowed to work and get my master's degree at the same time. So mabalik-balik ako from Pasig to QC to get my course, and at the same time bumalik sa workplace at magtrabaho. At that time, nagkaroon ako ng ipon, and I decided to talk to a mentor that I want to go into his lab. So kinausap ko siya, do you have available projects that I might get into and become a research assistant? So I became a research assistant under the COSFI project led by my current advisor. And then after that, I applied for GRATE program because the project that I was working for is a PCARD funded project. So while I was working as a research assistant and taking less course units. So if you're a research assistant in our university or an instructor, there's a certain limit to the units that you can take. So for me, when I was a research assistant, hanggang 6 units lang yung pwede kong i-take. But then when I was awarded with a scholarship, I was allowed to take 9 to 12 units per semester. So my program is designed in a way that we take 24 units of courses and then 6 units of theses and 1 seminar. And then when I was awarded with my scholarship, I had full tuition, I had stipend, and thesis grant. So for my thesis grant, I have to make a proposal for it. And ayun, nakakuha ko ng thesis grant after ma-approve yung aking thesis proposal. So next slide, please. So ito yung in general, I think everyone will tell you these things, pero it's something that you have to take note of. For me, number 1 is find a good mentor and connect to his or her former students. In the physical sciences track, if you're getting an MS degree there, importante na magaling yung mentor, and that mentor will understand you, and also dapat same kayo ng research interests. Next is save up. You should always have an emergency fund for rainy days. Actually, in any paths of life, dapat meron kang emergency fund, siguro 2 to 3 months of living expenses you should save up. Especially na ngayon nangyari ang COVID-19, I was able to use my emergency fund because lahat ngayon nang nasa administration ay in skeletal workforce. So there will be delays in paperworks, and expect that right now because of COVID-19. Next is read, research, write. You will be asked about the thesis topic you have in mind many times. So dapat you have an idea of what you really want to do before getting an MS degree, or at least bago ka pumasok sa MS degree, meron ka lang a vague idea of what you want to do, and then while applying for scholarships, you're already formulating it in your head. And next is talk about your ideas This will help you get ready for your interviews and get feedback from your peers. So dapat open ka to talk about your research ideas, because when you get into the interview, tatanungin nila sa'yo ay, what will you do with this MS degree? What are your plans for your thesis? What are your plans for your research? And then think about funding. Are you well equipped for the research that you want to do? So this is in side by side with getting a good mentor. So dapat you also ask yourself if you have the equipment that you need for your research. And lastly, have a plan B if hindi ka man ma-accept sa program na gusto mo or hindi ka makakuha ng scholarship. Grad school is not the only available opportunity for you. Next slide, please. So, ayan, this is my last slide. So, this is my experience as a MS student here in the Philippines. Ito yung aming site sa Cagayan. So, I am the scholar of this project, which is COSFI. Nagtayo kami ng radar sa Cagayan. Ayan, yung mga poles na makikita nyo sa photo. And you will realize that although challenged tayo resource-wise here in the Philippines, we can do world-class science here. You will also have a perspective of ano nga bang nangyayari sa research dito sa Pilipinas. So, ayun, if you want to pursue master's degree here in the Philippines, go for it. You just have to be prepared for it. Ayun, maraming salamat sa inyong pakikinig.
All right, thank you, Aiko. Ako na ba? Ako na, okay. Ako na.
BA, thank
you.
Go,
Thank you,
BA.
Aiko, and thank you everyone to our speakers. Very interesting stories nga, and sana po may natutunan tayong lahat. And ngayong mag-host na ako ng Q&A, when I was looking at the group chat, very participative ang ating speakers. And I think ang dami nang nasagot, pero let's just select a few para rin for the benefit of everyone. So first question is, if building research experience is recommended, how do we go about this without a master's degree? Kailangan ba ng publications? Do I go straight to graduate school or do I work for a while to build upon this experience? I think si Charles yung may answer dito.
Yeah. So I know Bryce, so he's my friend. So if your track is in engineering kasi, syempre i-consider mo rin to work on an industry. So it's not necessarily that you will go into masters. Again, na-mention na ni Aiko. Actually, medyo magka-wavelength siguro kami ni Aiko. Hindi talaga, I mean, kailangan mo malaman sa sarili mo if master's degree is for you. Kasi hindi lahat capable mag-research. Hindi lahat capable mag-research. Kasi we all know this is a tough road. Yeah. Pero, ayun. So, and I think for University Research Associate, for DOST or other government-funded projects, BS level is okay. So you don't need a master's degree or master unit. So you can be involved on a project. Actually, yung iba nga parang apply pa as SRS2. Around 40K na ata ang sahod, pero BS degree pa lang. So yeah, it's okay.
All right, thank you. For the next question, I think Jason can answer this, especially ang daming travel photos. Are the allowances included in the scholarships enough? Or should I expect or prepare more money? After si Aiko, pwede rin sagutin niya to.
Right.
Sorry,
So I guess
Si Jason
Go
muna,
ahead,
si
go
Jason muna.
and the question about allowances, I guess na-mention ko naman, it really differs from one scholarship to the other. So you have to check it. And second, it will differ from the city, the cost of living. Let's say, for example, for Australia, if you're studying in Sydney, Melbourne, Canberra, mahal talaga. But if you're studying in the rural areas or secondary tier cities such as Newcastle, Wollongong, Perth, Adelaide, it will be a lot cheaper. But at least for Australia alone, the allowance is more than enough for you to travel. But you can still work if you want to save up. So yeah, that's a quick answer. But again, it varies from scholarship to scholarship.
All right, thank you. Aiko, may insights ka about this?
Well, for me, I'm getting a stipend that's enough for me. At some point, nakakabigay din ako ng pera sa pamilya ko. So, it boils down to your cost of living. So, isipin mo kung magkano ba yung isi-spend mo rin for yourself. And then, may extra, go, pwede ka pa mag-travel-travel.
All right, thank you. So recommended na pag-aralan mo muna sa kapupunta and pag-aralan mo kung how much yung mabibigay sa'yo. All right.
Yes.
Kevin, do you want to answer this? Does pursuing master's or PhD take most of your time? And do you have to drop your side projects or passions? Diyan mo si Kevin.
Hi, sorry. It really depends on how you manage your time. So that does not necessarily mean that you will drop your passions and all. Lalo if your like for me, my passion is really on data analysis. So like what I'm doing at school is like what I really like to do. Though, yeah, what I can say, it really depends on how you manage your time. Like though right the moment it's hard, like this because of the pandemic, right? So like even if you wanted to do something, you cannot because you can't go out freely. So yeah, I guess just really need to know when and what you will do to pursue your passion while taking your masters.
All right, thank you. Ito maybe Karen can answer this, I think. What are the central qualities to get accepted in a certain scholarship? Is a powerful drive and passion for a certain field enough to get in? So paano raw yung mga students sa average, yung mababa yung grades pero want to apply for scholarship?
Do I answer this?
I don't think you answered this. Yeah, I just selected randomly.
Okay. Si Karen or whoever.
Aiko, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, you can go ahead. Sige, Aiko.
Okay. So for me, dahil galing ako sa physics and then I suddenly jumped into marine science. Like, what? Why are marine science? So technically, passion yung ginamit ko to get into masters. But the important thing that you have to consider when making your essays or getting into your interviews is always tell them what are your plans with a master's degree and what is also your plan for your research or kung ano man yung gagawin mong thesis. Because kailangan mo rin sabihin na I can do this research, I am capable, I am skilled. So ayun, hindi although nagmamatter ang grades at some point when they evaluate, you also have to let them know that ito yung kaya kong gawin and I can do that with a master's degree.
All right, thank you.
If I may add, sorry.
Yes, please, sure, go ahead.
Well, I think having good grades is always a great advantage to application, but it's not always the sole basis. But at least for Australia Awards, I've been mentoring a lot of peers, mentees kasi, not only Australia Awards, to other applications, because I also applied for others, medyo familiar. If grades is an issue, usually I will recommend Australia Awards because of the re-entry action plan, the return project. As mentioned in my talk earlier, it's the greatest equalizer. So as long as you have a project in line with the priority government of the Australian government, which will have a big impact, but let's talk separately about it. But that's the greatest equalizer. Hindi kailangan talagang cum laude ka. I've seen a lot of people from the regional schools who are in Australia Awards. So that's it. That's one good thing to pursue.
Yeah, all right, thank you. So, sige, diretso na natin. One concern here is yung mga for nag-PhD ngayon. So, nag-masters muna and then PhD. And some masters have required projects to do or required return services. So how does this affect your eligibility for PhD scholarships? Kasi you have to work in the Philippines though first, di ba? Do they keep you in the country or do they allow you to go PhD straight?
Simulan ko yung sa akin, tagsalita na ako. So Australia, the only clause would be you cannot return to Australia within 2 years after graduation. Okay. So long that you deliver your return project. So don't quote me for this, but if you're asking, meron bang nakapag-PhD sa iba outside Australia right after us finishing a degree? Yes, meron. At meron din nagtuloy-tuloy sa Australia, very rare instances. Basta siguro at the very least, deliver your return project. Kasi syempre, that's your promise eh. Di ba? Yan lang.
Yeah. Alright. Wala na akong maisip na tanong. Ito, yung question din kanina, if ever may na-reject na nga ba dito, how do you deal with scholarship rejections? Or lahat yata tayo dito na natanggap ka agad. Yeah. Ang hirap ng tanong na to.
Sige.
Kaya ako natanggap agad ako. Sorry, guys.
Sige, I could share perhaps since I've been mentoring a lot of friends nga.
Yes, please. Thank you.
I guess, masakit para sa akin halimbawa if I can see the people passing at the same time, ibang mentor mo, hindi. And general advice ko talaga, I'll stay true to it, na apply lang na apply. And don't put your eggs in one basket. If you really wanted to study, apply several applications, different scholarships from the really competitive ones sa tingin mong papasok ka. Kasi this goes to show as well na interested ka talaga. I guess there's a separate question kanina. Pwede bang sabihin na nag-apply ka sa iba? It's a yes and a no. But if you could package it as something na, yes, I'm really keen on studying in public health perhaps, so I'm applying to different universities, that could be a positive, could be perceived positively by the review committee. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for the questions and the answers. Yes, please. Meron pa?
Sorry, Jules here.
Yes, Jules.
I heard about the question on taking a master's with return service and then pursuing a PhD. I think I can provide context on this because I am guilty on this.
Go ahead.
I'm a Chinese scholar in 2017, which required me to provide return service in the Philippines for 2 years. But then something happened after 1 year, after a half year of providing return service. Something happened. The clause in Chevening is that we should return to the Philippines and serve for 2 years. But on some exceptional circumstances like mine, they will allow you. But you just need to provide them context and provide them information about why do you need to go back to the UK and pursue your PhD. They will entertain you, but do not expect that every request will be granted. It's a case-to-case basis. They will be the one who will say you're an exceptional case, so we will be letting you to go back to the UK and pursue your PhD. So I would say just try if your scholarship has as a return service agreement and you plan on pursuing a PhD within that return service agreement, just try, and whatever the outcome is, don't feel bad about it. Maybe it's not your time if they will not let you, but still try.
Sorry, Jules, just to piggyback quickly. I think a good thing about with some scholarship, they're very considerate and humane, very rights-based, yung mga scholarship. So iba-iba sila ng attitude and culture. So this is one thing that you need to navigate as well.
That's right.
All right, thank you very much. So we're running out of time. Naka ilang oras na tayo. Again, so we can't answer all your questions, but all our panelists can answer via the group chat, or you can contact them via their contact details. And ayan, so if you can share your details, I think na-share na kanina and kailangan na lang hukayin. And that would be great na makontak kayo. So thank you very much. Now I hand over the mic to Pierce. So isa rin siyang co-founders ng Science Chat PH, and he will be wrapping up this session. Pierce.
All right, guys, thank you. So that's it for our Prospectus session on Master's Edition. So thank you to the speakers and the very engaging audience for joining us on our third Science Hangout sessions. So I hope this was insightful and eye-opening. So to our participants, huwag niyong kalimutan, sagutan ng aming evaluation form at bit.ly Prospectus Evaluate. And there's another survey, bit.ly Grad Studies. So for that, please don't forget to follow us on Twitter for updates and tag us at or #ScienceChatPH whenever you tweet about STEAM stuff, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to view the previous Science Hangouts as well as those that will happen in the future. So for our next Science Hangout session will be on August 29, and it will be on PhD program. So please stay tuned. So for now, let's have a 5-minute break so everyone can stretch, drink some water, go some water break. So yeah, I'll see
Yep,
you in
let's
5 minutes.
provide context after the 5-minute break. So guys, we planned of doing a listening session because of the current discussion in social media about doing grad studies in the Philippines, and we think it's a high time that this should be discussed. We should sit on it and discuss about it and provide some context and suggestions and recommendations. You are very welcome to join the listening sessions, but we understand we kind of like nag-overtime ng kaunti. So if your schedule won't permit, it's okay. But we would appreciate and we really suggest that you answer the survey on Grad Studies PH because you want to listen to all your experiences about doing or planning of doing a postgrad studies in the Philippines. So those who wants to stay for the listening session, we will be talking in or after 5 minutes. Thank you.
All right, see you in 5, guys.